Hey everyone and welcome to Storytime. My name is Jake and today we are going to be looking at the subreddit r/maliciouscompliance. So sit back, relax and enjoy some satisfying stories. Manager wouldn't help when short-staffed, had to do the work herself at the end of the night. When I was in high school, I had a part-time job working at a local restaurant. One day I came in and was scheduled to wash dishes. No big deal. I walked into the back and came to find out that the morning shift did not have a dishwasher, therefore there was a mountain of dishes. No bueno. On top of all that, we got slammed that night. As a minor, I was required to take a 30-minute break in order to work my full shift, 4 PM to 10 PM I believe. As I clocked out for my break, I asked my manager if she could have someone cover my position while I was on break to prevent an even worse situation than was already at hand. She responded, "Won't be able to, you'll just have to stay late and finish it." An important thing to keep in mind is that this manager was notoriously lazy and unhelpful. She never lended a helping hand to get things done faster. She would rather stay 3 hours past close sitting in the office waiting for us to finish our closing duties instead of coming out and helping and getting everything done in a timely manner. She also was not very familiar with child labor laws in Ohio. Since I was a minor, not only did I have to take a 30-minute break, I also could not work past 11 PM on school nights. So, after clocking back in from my break, I resumed washing the mountain of dishes that had accumulated. I took my time and didn't rush to get everything cleaned, but also wasn't going extremely slow on purpose. 10:59 rolls around and I walk into the office to tell her that I am leaving. She asked, "Got everything done?" "Nope," I said. "It's a Wednesday night, can't work past 11 PM. Labor laws. I left the water turned on for you, there's still a lot left." The look on her face was priceless. I clocked out with the biggest smile on my face, knowing that she was going to have to leave the office and do something for once. Asked another manager the next day to see what time she clocked out. 1:15 AM. I don't understand people that are managers that don't understand what a manager is. Like, you're supposed to help the staff and train them if they don't know what they're doing. You're supposed to help them out if they're overwhelmed. Not sit back and watch from afar. That's not how it works. You must ID anyone for drinks with any alcohol in them. When I was fresh out of college and moved back home to save up some money to pursue my career, I got a job at a chain restaurant as a server. That was super corporate, but I made some friends for life and I met my wife there, and it was a page in the book. At one point in my term there, we had a staff meeting where we sat down and told we had to ID everyone, no exceptions, no matter how old they looked, if they were buying alcohol, as it was somehow some part of a BS law that was either new or just now going to be enforced, not by the company, rather by the regulatory agencies. This sort of thing is a nuisance because I am not going to fall for 3 kids stacked in a trench coat. I know when and when not to ID based on appearance, and take my ego out of this, the people you ID have the same feeling about it. 80-year-old people giving me the "Are you serious?" look, while questioning my intelligence despite me trying to explain I am required to do it. Of course, the pushback became tiresome, and wouldn't you know it, the first time I decided to let it slide and did not demand ID was for a 60-year-old something judge who let my manager know I neglected my duty. After the table left, I got chewed out by the manager, written up, and he emphasized that no matter what, if there was alcohol in the drink, I would demand ID or be fired. Fine. My bad, never again. A couple weeks later, and I am bartending. I served there as well as tended bar, and I get a guy who has been in before, but is a cantankerous old pest who the regulars have even complained about. He asks for an O'Doyle's, and without even thinking, I ask for ID. I realize what I've done, as O'Doyle's is considered a non-alcoholic beer, since it's less than 5% alcohol. But this guy's a never tipping leech, and the same manager who issued the edict that anything with alcohol requires ID was on duty. Funnily enough, he had forgot his ID. Perfect. So I stood fast and it led to him asking for my manager. My favourite regulars bore witness to me stating my case for the angry manager under fire and his back and forth with the angry leech, and ultimately, since I followed his orders, I was absolved of guilt and made extra cash since my regulars always showed appreciation for some spectacle. My manager hated the situation from all sides, and just asked me to please find a way to navigate this policy till the lunacy is over. That confrontation between a man who felt he shouldn't have to show ID for a non-alcoholic beer, which actually had a minute amount, and someone who had made his bed by not considering this potentially and drawing a line was too satisfying, but only because both victims deserved some heartache. Today, in my state at most places I go, they say if you look over 35, you're good. I assume OP meant 0.5% alcohol because I'm pretty sure a lot of like beers and ciders have like 4% or 3.5% or something like that. So I'm just going to assume it was 0.5%. Taking on my bullying boss. So last year, I'd been working for big UK telco as a senior technical reporter for 16 years. All was well, I was highly qualified, my job dealt with local government so I had clearance, etc. I enjoyed it and my company had supported me when I had to take 3 months off 2 years ago with a serious health condition. But then I got a new boss, we'll call her Helen. Helen was actually part of our wider team, a fellow reporter who was promoted. Actually, she was best friends with the senior manager, so the power went straight to her head and she started reprimanding people for random things, like disrespect for questioning a process change which would double the time it took to do it, etc. She wanted to make her stamp on the job despite it all working fine until then. Unable to deal with Helen, my colleague Jim hands his notice in. Jim is a technical architect, a role I did some years ago before taking a sideways move into reporting. His company is huge, and it takes him forever to do his job, especially with all Helen's improvements. Before he leaves, I get called into an informal chat, which turned out to Helen informing me they're not backfiling Jim, they're making a cost saving, for which she will get a bonus. Instead, my role was to be, ta-da, a technical reporting architect for both customers. But that's 2 jobs, I point out. Which part of each are you proposing I drop to even make this remotely possible? We're not dropping anything, it's perfectly doable. But despite whether you think it is, I don't agree. I see Jim struggle every day, it's why he's leaving. I don't want to do 2 jobs, I have my health to think about. Oh please, you're not so special. She's literally scoffing at me right now. I must point out here that my serious health condition was PTSD and a nervous breakdown after having a baby, watching my dad have a stroke, my mum being in a coma following a massive heart attack, and a close friend passing away. She then goes on to say she doesn't believe in mental health and I should prepare to have my handover from Jim. So I ask her to check with HR whether what she's doing is legal, as it's a change of role with no new contract. This really ticks her off. The meeting ends. A week later, she hauls me into a stress review meeting, which, when I arrived, was a reprimand. In order to try and be as maliciously compliant as she could, she'd written all 11 things I'm supposed to have done wrong. The idea being, I'd end up being written up, and should I betray her again, fired. Some of my crimes were being miserable. Yes, I got in trouble for being sad. Refusing to take on Jim's role and being awkward due to my so-called health problems. She faked a customer complaint. Turns out I wasn't the only one she did this to. And not attending a meeting she ran weekly. I went back through my mail to find the email she'd sent to me saying my attendance wasn't required as I'd used a different system due to my customer. She said I was skating on thin ice, and if I wasn't willing to pick up the extra work, then why come back at all after Christmas? This was late December. Okay then. Day after New Year's, I called in sick. She was right. I had no intention whatsoever of doing 2 jobs. I had 16 lovely weeks off with my family, at full pay, whilst I prepared all my evidence. Easy enough, as she was stupid enough to email it to me, to take the company to court for bullying. Her manager/best friend would not reprimand her. It never got to court. The entire department was made redundant due to mismanagement, and on top of my redundancy package, I was paid for the remainder of the year plus all my holidays. I got a better paid job the day after I handed my laptop in. My new boss is absolutely lovely, and my new company treats me with respect. And I can see boats and ducks from my office window. She did not lose her job. Her friend promoted her to another department where she's universally hated and back to her old tricks, even going so far as to ring ex-employees' new managers to tell them they made a mistake hiring them, literally just to be a mean witch. But hey, karma will get her in the end. I think the worst thing out of all of that was the fact that she said, "I don't believe in mental health." That's probably why she's got so many problems. Want to limit my food expenses to a limit? I will make sure I hit the limit every day. So I am a business consultant, and usually during the week, we are at a client site and get paid for travel, meals, etc. The meal reimbursement policy is quite flexible and doesn't limit what we can claim, like some of the other consulting companies. So we can claim lunch, alcohol, whatever. The policy, however, does lay down a guidance for a daily limit for food expenses, based on the country where you're traveling. I capitalized the word guidance since that is exactly how it is written in the policy. It is a guidance, not a hard limit. For the UK, where my current project is, the limit is £40 per day, which is mostly okay, but it can be a bit low if you're in the centre of London, for example. Now, I do intermittent fasting, so most of the days I don't have breakfast and lunch, and just have one big meal a day, and have no problems keeping to the £40, usually around £20. On some days, I might go to a fancy restaurant, have a couple of scotches with a steak, and run up a $60 bill. But during the course of a 5-day week, my average meals would run about £30 a day, if not less. I've never had a problem claiming these expenses in my 9 years with the firm, but recently a new project manager, Reed Bean Counter, came on board, and he sent back a couple of my expense reports for having meal expenses in excess of the £40 for a couple of days, even though the average meal expense over the week was much less than £40. I tried to reason with him, told him that anyway it was a guidance and not a hard limit, and I was keeping the cost down on the other days. He refused to budge, and said I could only claim £40 a day for food. So guess what? I started doing exactly that. Every day I made sure I was claiming £40 or thereabouts for food. I started buying meals for the homeless people around the train station to make sure I could make it up to the £40. So now, where I was claiming less than £150 a week for meals, I now claim £200 and get some good karma for it. Yeah, I feel like a limit on those kind of things are just gonna make everyone try and hit the limit, or just about hit it, especially in like a corporate company where you're not close to the owners. You're going to call security on me? Please do. A couple of months ago, I was doing some IT support for a country music concert. The concert was out in a big, for lack of better term, field, and the venue wanted to be able to take credit cards in the middle of this field. There are no cell towers around, so the typical square devices wouldn't work unless connected to a Wi-Fi network. Here's where I come in. This Wi-Fi network was also in use by the stagehands, producers, support staff, and the artists, so it got a little congested at times. I told everyone up front we were prioritizing credit card transactions and to just deal with it. Most everyone understood, but some of the artists are prissy prima donnas. I had been up since roughly 4 AM because I had to vacate my dwelling for an artist. I was staying on site for the event, after having gone to bed around midnight. I had been at this venue all week setting things up, and was not in a good mood anyway. All day we had issue with our network, because we had almost 10,000 people around, and things kept getting congested or broken. On to the malicious compliance, finally. Fast forward to about 9:30 PM, I get this call over the radio that says, "Internet is down at the artist tent." So I respond and head over there. Keep in mind, I'm wearing just a t-shirt and jeans, not advertising the venue or the event. Learned my lesson after a previous event, but I do have a radio on, so I'm somewhat official. I pull up outside the tent with my 4-wheel and trailer attached, because I was helping the trash guys get some of the place cleaned up. It had been over 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and I had been outside all day. I'm tired, cranky, hot, burnt, and generally not a nice person at this point. I walk into the tent and hear this voice from the other side of the tent say, "If you don't leave, I'm calling security." I turn around thinking this person is talking to someone else, and the artist points at me and says again, "If you don't leave, I'm calling security." I said, "Go ahead, just quit complaining about your internet being down." He backpedaled pretty quickly and said, "Oh, you're the internet guys, you can stay." I wasn't having a good day, see earlier hot and tired, so I said, "No, call security, I want to see what happens." Then I turned around and started fixing the issue. Pretty soon this other person walks in and says, "Mr. Brown, is there an issue?" And the artist pointed at me. Security guy looks my way and says, "That's your issue." The artist nodded and the security guy said, "Good luck with that," turned around and left. I've always wondered, it's gotta be awful working as like technician or security at a place where people think that they're better than you. Obviously not all artists are like that, but there's probably some of them that are like, "Oh, I'm above you."
Hey everyone, I hope you all had a really good day and that you enjoyed that video. If you want to check out some other videos, then click on screen right now, or check out the playlist down below. If you enjoyed that video, then please do leave a like. And if you want to submit your own stories, then you can do so by joining the Discord in the top link in the description. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.